Jim Harold's Crime Scene is brought to you by Scott eVest. Great clothing plus tons of pockets for your stuff. That's Scott eVest, and it is a preeminent Father's Day gift. To learn more and get a super special Scott eVest deal, go to jimharold.com/vest. That's jimharold.com/vest. Click on the link I provide there and use the coupon code JimHarold, and you'll get 20% off your purchase. Thanks, Scott eVest.
The crimes, the criminals, why did they do it? Who got hurt? Did they meet justice or commit the perfect crime? You'll find all the clues at Jim Harold's Crime Scene.
Welcome to the Crime Scene. I am Jim Harold, and so glad to be with you once again. And usually we feature a lot of historic cases, but today we're going to talk about one that is literally ripped out of the headlines. It's about MMA fighter War Machine and the 29 felony counts that he was convicted of for the assault of his ex-girlfriend, Christy Mack. Now, actually, War Machine was just a couple of days ago sentenced to life in prison because of these actions, and we're going to talk to the district attorney on the case, Stephen Wolfson, about it, and he's a fantastic guest. Stephen and his team will be featured in this season's premiere episode of Sin City Justice, Rage Against the Machine. It'll be on Investigation Discovery Channel on Thursday, June 8th at 10 p.m. Eastern. And Stephen certainly has an interesting and impressive job. As Clark County's top prosecutor, District Attorney Steve Wolfson leads the largest and busiest law firm in the state of Nevada. He manages a $65 million budget and over 700 employees, including 170 attorneys in 4 different divisions who combined handle nearly 100,000 cases annually. And we're so glad to have him with us today.
Well, Jim, thanks so much. It's a pleasure to be on your program.
I'm curious, when you're dealing with a celebrity case like this, how is it different?
Well, you know, the cases are judged like any other case. Us prosecutors look at the evidence and the facts and whether a person committed a crime and whether we can prove it in court. That's where we start. But we're not blind to the fact that some cases that have high-profile folks, whether it be an actor, a sports figure, or otherwise a celebrity, it does change the dynamic a little because of so much attention being brought to the case. We've got cameras in the courtroom. We've got people with microphones that always want to interview you. The spotlight is always there. So it does introduce a little bit of a new dimension. But at the end of the day, my prosecutors are top-notch. They're the best in the country. They do a great job. And in this case, I believe justice was delivered not only swiftly, but with a firm hand.
Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about the people involved in this case, and let's start with the martial arts fighter known as War Machine. His real name was Jonathan Paul Koppenhaver. Talk to us a little bit about War Machine. You know, he was convicted, so assuming that is the correct sentence, you have to have a lot of fury to do something like this. Talk to us about War Machine.
Well, you know, Mr. Koppenhaver is not new to the criminal justice system, and I think that's one thing that can't be ignored. He goes by War Machine now. That's actually his legal name. He's got 3 prior felony violent convictions. So this is not a person that in 1 hour of their lives they went off the deep end. He's got a history of violence dating back 7 years or so. He's got 3 prior felony convictions for violence. He's got a misdemeanor for domestic battery. So this is somebody that did not deserve a second chance. He's been given a second and third chance before. So a violent guy that committed very violent acts, in my opinion, got what he deserved from our sentencing judge.
And then on the other side, you have the victims of this, Christy Mack and Corey Thomas. And Christy Mack, and one thing that I think would have to be tough being in this situation, she had a background in adult films. And some people might look at that and say, oh, you know, this person is of questionable character and those kind of things. I think that would be very unfortunate to frame a victim of any kind of crime that way, but I think that's out there probably. some bias against her. So what kind of person is she really?
Well, Jim, you're right. It's out there, and the defense tried to portray her as something less than a victim, but all you have to do is look at the pictures.
Yes.
And I don't care who you are, from what lifestyle you choose to lead, what background you have, you don't deserve to be beaten to a pulp like she and Mr. Thomas were. I mean, she had broken bones. She had her teeth knocked out. She had injuries that when you look at the pictures, you couldn't recognize it was her. So I don't care what kind of lifestyle she may have chosen. She didn't deserve to be beaten like that, nor did Mr. Thomas. So, there is the discussion about her lifestyle, but I don't think it matters in this case.
And I think that's very true. It's unfair that sometimes, and again, defense attorneys have their job. And I heard one prosecutor say, hey, I want somebody that puts up a vigorous defense. That way I know that my case is being tested. So, I mean, that serves a purpose. But it's unfortunate when someone who's clearly a victim in a case is kind of painted with a broad brush, whether it's this case or another case, because of other things that they made choices about that have nothing to do with the actual case itself.
Well, Jim, it's part of the case. It's part of our system. I was a defense lawyer for 25 years before becoming the prosecutor here in Las Vegas. And you're right. Defense lawyers have jobs to do. And if their strategy is to portray the victim in a less than attractive light, you take your chances whether it's sold to the jury. In this case, the jury didn't buy it. In this case, the jury looked at Christy Mack as a human being that didn't deserve to be treated the way she was, and that's why they came back with 28 or so convictions, and so many of those crimes that he was convicted of carry life sentences. And the judge didn't buy it either. Yesterday with the sentencing, and it was an extraordinary sentencing because most times in cases like this, the sentencing takes 5 or 10 or 15, 20 minutes tops. This sentencing took hours. And the judge really gave both the prosecutor and the defense lawyer more than sufficient time to present their side. And the defense lawyer, a guy out of California, did the best he could with what he had. But Judge Kadish, our sentencing judge, saw through a lot of the smoke and mirrors that were put up by the defense. And that's why she came on with a sentence that will make him serve the next 3 decades in a Nevada state prison.
Now, one thing I wonder about, you talked about, he didn't deserve second chances, and he had shown, War Machine that is, had shown his proclivity for felonies. But in our society, do you find, you said in the case itself it didn't make any difference. Yes, there's more attention, but it's adjudicated the same way and so forth. But do you find that we tend to give more second chances as a society to people that are particularly good at something that makes a lot of money, whether it's a singer, an actor, a boxer, or an MMA fighter? Do you think that's true?
Well, first of all, let me say this. I believe in second chances. We're human beings, and I've never met a human being that never made a mistake in their life.
It's true.
I've made mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. But, there comes a time when you are given a second chance, and then a third chance, and then a fourth chance, and if your behavior escalates, and that's what happened here, enough is enough. And yes, it can be very difficult for prosecutors to convict celebrities. Whether it be O.J. Simpson, Bill Cosby's on trial right now, and I'm not going to comment on his guilt or innocence, but I'm sure the prosecutor is sensitive to the fact that Bill Cosby is an iconic figure. And jurors, whether it be consciously or not, have a favorable opinion of celebrities. Who doesn't like Bill Cosby? Who doesn't like the celebrities? Who doesn't want to be famous? Who doesn't want to be rich? So when they're accused of things that are outside the typical stereotype of their image, jurors maybe don't want to believe it. So prosecutors have to present their case in a very organized fashion, because the jurors are told, base your verdict on the evidence, not what you hear outside the courtroom. So I guarantee you prosecutors anywhere are very sensitive when they've got either high-profile figures or sports figures or celebrities, police officers as defendants, because it does introduce a unique dynamic to the process.
One thing that interests me, not just about this case or about any case like this, where you talked about Cosby or O.J. Simpson, those are two huge examples. When they talk about sometimes they will move a case because of change of venue, because maybe the media is too intense in one area, so they'll move it someplace where they think they can get a better pool or whatever it might be that might not be biased. But with a case like a Simpson or a Cosby, or even a case like this maybe to some extent, there's nowhere to move it. I mean, isn't by definition any jury tainted, again, as you said, whether intentionally, even if somebody's of goodwill? Hey, I am of goodwill. I think I've served on a jury before, and I felt that I tried to be as fair as humanly possible. But you know what? If I'm in a jury for Bill Cosby, I'm in my late 40s. I grew up watching Fat Albert and The Cosby Show, and I have a lifetime of positive thoughts about Bill Cosby and how to get deprogram that and put it aside. It's tough.
Well, it is, but these juries are instructed to leave outside of their deliberative process their preconceived knowledge, their preconceived ideas, their likes or dislikes for the parties. Now, in reality, we're all human beings, and a change of venue is a process that is granted rarely. It's not a common thing for a judge to say, I don't think we can seat a fair jury in this community. So a change of venue is granted rarely because I think jurors recognize the solemnity of their oath and how important it is for them to do equal and exact justice for both sides. And I think that, I believe in our jury system. I think most of the time our juries get it right. And they got it right in War Machine, and I think they get it right most of the time. And I think judges believe in that as well.
Well, we want to talk more about the specifics of this case. Our guest today is District Attorney Steve Wolfson. We'll be back on the crime scene right after this. Jim Harold's Crime Scene is brought to you by Scott E. Vest. Great clothing plus tons of pockets for your stuff. Well, that's Scott E. Vest. And to learn more and get a super special Scott E. Vest deal, go to jimharold.com/vest. That's jimharold.com/vest. If you click on the link I provide there and use the coupon code JimHarold, one word, no spaces, you'll get 20% off your purchase. And the thing is that it's clothes with a difference. They're fine clothes. I mean, right now I'm wearing my hoodie. As I'm recording this, it's a little chilly for June here in Cleveland. So I'm wearing my micro fleece hoodie I just got from Scott E. Vest. I absolutely love it. And they have these little thoughtful features. Again, you can put your phone or your tablet or your eyeglasses. But they actually, on this one with the hood, they've got a little do not disturb flap that you can put over your face. I absolutely love that. And it speaks to the thoughtfulness and the quality of Scott E. Vest clothes because, I don't know if you're like me, but I've got a ton of stuff to carry around with all the electronics and sometimes podcasting equipment. And whether it's one of their hoodies, one of their jackets, one of their vests, you always have somewhere to put your stuff. And thankfully, there is Scott E. Vest. It's great for travel. You just put it on the little bin there and run it through, and they can check you out. And you don't have to be fumbling around. It's really great for any kind of travel. You could even carry a full-size laptop with a Scott E. Vest. Now, this is a great gift for Father's Day. Fantastic. And another thing I got, in addition to their microfleece hoodie, I recently got their packet jacket, their new and improved windbreaker, which is fantastic. Dad's going to love it. Mom will love it. They've got great clothing for women as well. Discover the power of tons of pockets. Go to jimharold.com/vest. That's jimharold.com/vest. Click on the link I provide there and use the coupon code JimHarold and you'll get 20% off your purchase. Get Dad something he will remember. I thank Scott E. Vest and you'll thank him too. Check it out. Our guest today is District Attorney Steve Wolfson. He serves in Clark County, Nevada, and he was the prosecutor for the War Machine case that was just up and the sentence handed down on June 5th. And there will be a new show on Investigation Discovery that will have this serve as its premiere episode. The show is called Sin City Justice: Rage Against the Machine on Thursday, June 8th at 10 p.m. Eastern. And we're so glad to have Steve Wolfson with us. Now, Steve, talk to us about the circumstances around this attack. Obviously, as you said, all you have to do is see the pictures and the beating that Christy Mack withstood, or the pictures that I saw, and then Corey Thomas also was extremely brutal. And literally, you have to think about a fighting machine. I mean, this man is trained to beat professionals to a pulp. So just thinking what he could do to just a regular person is devastating. There had to be a lot of fury around that, whether, it's not justified in any way, but what set him off? I mean, what happened to cause this furious and vicious attack?
Well, Jim, that's a long question. I'll try and do my best to answer it. Let me say this. I'm not sure if you're doing it purposely, but the Sin City Justice show, which airs Thursday at 10 p.m., is on the Investigation Discovery channel. I want your listeners to be aware of that.
Sure. Yes.
So let me answer your question. Mr. Copenhaver, also known as War Machine, had a history of steroid usage, and he reported that he suffered from PTSD, anxiety, panic disorder, depression. Back 7 or 8 years ago, he said that he was in counseling and started taking medications to control his panic attacks. But I think what it really boils down to is this man was accustomed to using his hands in a combat situation. I mean, this is what he did for a living. He fought. And I think what happened was that he felt Christy Mack, that he had a relationship with, may have been with another man, and it enraged him, and he went crazy. And, we all get upset, we all get emotional, but what he did to his victims was, unbelievable and certainly unacceptable. So I think it's a combination of their volatile relationship. War Machine and Christy Mack were in a very volatile relationship. She admitted to that. And I think he just exploded and just went berserk. And, we all get excited about things, but he used his hands as almost deadly weapons to cause this brutal, vicious attack.
Now, let me ask you this, because you said before you've been given all these chances. Do you think, and I think this does happen sometimes, among people who are celebrities or wealthy or whatever it might be, and they're given a chance and then they do something a little bit worse. And then they're given another chance and then they do something a little bit more worse. And then it keeps escalating every time and they think, I can get away with that because I am who I am. Do you think that played a part here?
I'm not sure. He was first convicted back in 2002. That's 15 years ago of obstructing a public officer. Now, it's only a misdemeanor, but he was placed on probation back then. And then in 2007, his next conviction was an assault, deadly weapon, great bodily injury. But then in 2009, he suffered his first major conviction, a felony of attempt to commit battery with substantial bodily harm, and he was given probation. Now, this is formal probation with a probation officer. I would imagine he did some counseling and things like that, but he did not do well on probation. His probation was revoked. So here's a guy that's given chances and then doesn't take advantage of them, and then is given more chances, again, doesn't correct his behavior, and then all of a sudden he becomes famous. And maybe he comes into some money as a result of his MMA fighting, and maybe he thinks he's beyond the rules and the acceptable behavior of our community. I can't speak for him. All I can say is that I think the sentence was appropriate, and I think he's going to have a lot of time to reflect in prison on why this came about.
Now, he's made a claim, and of course, I think you have a lot of jailhouse conversions, whether they're sincere. I'm sure they are in some cases. Maybe other times they're kind of a cover story. He says he's a new man, doesn't he?
You know, Jim, I've been practicing law in this Las Vegas community for 36 plus years as a prosecutor, defense lawyer, and now the DA, and I've heard them all. And I would say one of the most common things that judges hear next to I have a drug problem, I have an alcohol problem, is that the person has found religion. And I don't necessarily doubt that a man like Mr. Copenhaver, who was in custody for 2 years, he's got a lot of time on his hands. He's got a lot of time to think about how I got to where I'm at. Might look to religion for self-preservation, for a need to survive. So I don't doubt that that happened, but at the same time, it doesn't excuse behavior. It doesn't remedy the harm he caused. So maybe he's religious and good for him, and maybe that gives him some internal comfort. We all have to do what we have to do to survive, but it doesn't excuse what he did, and the judge, I think, agreed with me.
Was this a case where right away, I mean, obviously you knew right away who did this? Was he taken into custody very quickly? How did this all unravel?
As I recall, he was not taken into custody right away. He escaped from the scene and went to California, as I recall, and was picked up a week or two later, as I recall.
And I think something has to be said about Christy Mack here. I mean, this is a pretty formidable guy. I wouldn't want to face him in a dark alley because I'd be dead. For her to stand up and say this was done, she must be very, very, very tough.
Well, I'll tell you, Christy Mack is a superstar in my eyes. It takes a lot of strength and intestinal fortitude to come forward, tell the truth, knowing that the world is going to look at you and be skeptical, be critical, and almost try and shift some of the blame at you. But domestic violence is totally unacceptable. And I want to encourage people who are victims of domestic violence, and I don't care whether you're a woman or a man, because men can be victims too, to report the abuse and to come forward, because there is help out there, whether it be our local police, women's shelters, or friends and family. We want people to come forward and be strong, and she is the poster child for people because of what she's gone through this last couple of years, what she's, even yesterday in the courtroom, she had to sit there and listen to a very capable defense lawyer just doing his job, try again to criticize her and to denigrate her character. So in my book, Christy Mack deserves a lot of credit for coming forward, staying strong, and helping us deliver justice to Mr. Copenhaver.
And she's still scared for her safety. Didn't she state that in court the other day?
You know, she did. I've never been beaten up like that, you know, knock on wood. I can't imagine what goes through your mind to see the face of the man that caused you so much pain. And not only the image in your mind, but to then have to confront him in court. You know, and he's sitting over there and he's lost a few pounds because he's been in jail, and he's cool, calm, and collected. But that's not the rage that she saw in his face that night. And I don't know that that image ever goes away. So when she says she still fears for her life, it's understandable.
Yeah, that's frightening, because if he gets out, I mean, with parole, I mean, be some in his early 70s, but still, that's still the person who beat you within an inch of your life. And they're probably both quite lucky that they're still alive.
Yeah, well, you know, you look at those pictures, And I remember seeing Christy just a week or 10 days after this attack, and you wouldn't recognize her today from the way she looked the night of the attack and even for days and weeks afterwards. It's incredible.
I mean, what I don't understand is, how do you put up a defense for this? I mean, there is no defense. I mean, other than trying to cast aspersions at Christie's integrity because of her background, what else did they throw up there? Because I can't think of any justification whatsoever, unless it were self-defense. That's and that's kind of beyond the pale. I can't think of a possible defense.
Well, I'll say it again. I was a defense lawyer for 25 years, and sometimes you have to get a little creative in there. When you don't have, the law on your side, you argue the facts. When you don't have the facts, you argue the law. When you have neither, you get creative. And I think what the defense team did in this case was try and explain his mental state as a result of being a martial arts fighter, whether it be trauma to the brain, whether it be the PTSD, whether it be the drug usage, the steroids. I think it was kind of a projection of a temporary insanity kind of defense. But it didn't work because, I'll come back to this. This is not a man for the first time in his life that exhibited violent behavior. He knew he was capable of doing something like this, so the responsibility lies with him.
Now on to being covered by this television show. Again, the Investigation Discovery Channel, Sin City Justice, Rage Against the Machine, going to premiere this Thursday, June 8th at 10 p.m. Eastern. Now, how did that change the dynamic? Now, I'm sure you did your job the same as you would always do it, but what did having these crews kind of following the case, following you guys around, what was that like?
Well, Jim, this is our second season, so we went through season one, and it was an experience to have the cameras and the crews. But, my prosecutors here in Las Vegas, they're not unaccustomed to having cameras in the courtroom. We have a lot of cases that get a lot of attention, whether it be the murders or the sexual assaults or other kinds of cases. So to see the cameras in the courtroom was not all that foreign. Now, but to have the cameras do some interviews in your office and to have them go out to you or with you to the crime scenes, that was different, if you will. But my prosecutors rose to the occasion. And I will tell you this, Jim, because I've said this before. I told my prosecutors from day one that they are to treat these cases like any other cases and to not play to the cameras, to not go to trial just because the case is going to get more attention if it's in trial. And I'll tell you this. Our producers lost a number of good cases because defendants took plea bargains on the morning of trial, because my prosecutors did justice. They didn't just go to trial for the sake of the television show. Mm-hmm. So I'm very proud of the fact that my prosecutors did what they felt was right on the case, notwithstanding the fact that there was a television show that was involved, because there were a lot of cases. And if that one didn't work out, the producers would find other cases.
And I do have to ask this question because it's a critique that's been brought up in regard to some of the cop-oriented TV shows like maybe Live PD or the show Cops, which was extremely popular for probably almost a couple of decades on Fox. Is this fair to the participants? I mean, is it fair, do you think, to the defendants? What do you think about the fairness of TV cameras being involved like this?
Well, TV cameras are in the courtroom regardless. So, we have First Amendment here in this country, which allows access by the media and the public into our court proceedings, which is a good thing. The defendants, actually, one or two of them agreed to interviews and had their lawyers participate in interviews. So some of the defendants thought it was to their benefit to participate in the television show, as well as the defense lawyers. We did not show anybody in the television show that didn't want to be in the television show unless it was in the courtroom, because the courtroom is a public domain. So anybody that was filmed outside the courtroom, we had to do it with their permission. And this show is very, very victim-oriented. These episodes highlight the trauma and pain suffered by victims. And I'm very, very pleased because this is real TV. None of it is scripted. None of it is with producers or directors telling us what to do. It's cinema verite in its real form. And I think that America liked it enough after season 1 to give us a chance at season 2, and I think season 2 is going to be even better.
And on that point, very important to repeat it so people know where to find it and when to find it. Can you give us the details once again? Well, the first episode of Sin City Justice is this Thursday, June 8th. The name of the episode is Rage Against the Machine. It's on the Investigation Discovery Channel, and we have 6 episodes for this season, so it's every Thursday night at 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for the next 6 weeks. Very good. Well, it's been a fascinating discussion, ripped from the headlines, talking about this particular first episode this season of Sin City Justice. Our guest has been Clark County District Attorney Stephen Wolfson. Stephen, thank you for joining us today.
Jim, a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this edition of The Crime Scene. I certainly appreciate it, and thanks so much to District Attorney Wolfson for joining us today. That was a very interesting discussion. And again, I want to say this because I missed it in there a couple of times. It's going to be on Investigation Discovery Channel. That's Investigation Discovery, and it'll be this year's premiere episode of Sin City Justice, Rage Against the Machine, on Thursday, June 8th at 10 p.m. Eastern. We hope that you enjoyed the show, and we'll talk to you next time. Be careful out there. Bye-bye, everybody.